Hey there, before we jump into this super fun story, I want to know, where are you right now? Are you at home, at school, or maybe sneaking a peek at this on your phone? Drop it in the comments below. Oh, and here's a quick question. Have you ever met someone who thought they were the boss of everyone? You know, the kind of person who acts like they make all the rules. Well, get ready, because this story is about one of those people, and a guy who's about to surprise her big time. If you love stories that keep you guessing, hit that subscribe button and let's dive in. It was a bright, sunny afternoon in Oakwood Heights. This was a small, quiet neighborhood where houses sat in neat rows with green lawns and colorful flowers. Everyone seemed to know each other. Kids rode bikes down the street and neighbors waved hello. It felt like a happy place, or at least that's what most people thought. But there was something going on that nobody saw coming. Let me tell you about Jake Carter. Jake was a new guy in town. He moved into a little house on Maple Street just 1 month ago. He was a regular guy, not too loud or fancy. He had short brown hair, wore plain t-shirts, and always seemed to be smiling. Jake liked to keep to himself. Most days you'd find him in his garage messing around with all sorts of gadgets. He had wires, tools, and little machines spread out on a table. And nobody really knew what he was building, and honestly, nobody cared much. To the neighbors, Jake was just the new guy, quiet, polite, and not worth much notice. But not everyone ignored Jake. There was one person who noticed him a lot, too much actually. Her name was Linda Grayson, but everyone called her the HOA Karen behind her back. HOA stands for Homeowners Association, a group that makes rules for the neighborhood, like what color your house can be or how tall your grass can grow. Linda was the head of the HOA, and boy, did she love being in charge. She walked around Oakwood Heights like she owned every single house. She carried a clipboard everywhere, scribbling notes about anything she didn't like. If your mailbox was a little crooked, Linda wrote it down. If your dog barked too loud, Linda was at your door with a frown. She was the kind of person who could make a sunny day feel gloomy. Linda had a way of making people nervous. She'd march up to your porch, her shoes clicking on the sidewalk, and point out something wrong. Then she'd slap a fine on you, money you had to pay for breaking her rules. Nobody liked her much, but they were too scared to say anything. Linda thought she was the queen of Oakwood Heights, and she wasn't afraid to let everyone know it. Now Jake, he wasn't like the other neighbors. He didn't care about Linda's rules. He thought they were silly. When he moved in, he put a cool new gadget on his front porch, a smart fan. It was a shiny silver thing, not too big, with blades that spun so quietly you could barely hear them. The fan was awesome. It kept the hot summer air away and made sitting on the porch super comfy. Jake loved it. He'd sit outside with a glass of lemonade, watching the fan spin and just relax. But Linda, oh, she hated that fan. The first time she saw it, her eyes got all squinty. She stopped right in front of Jake's house, her clipboard clutched tight, and stared at the fan like it was the ugliest thing in the world. "That's an eyesore," she said, loud enough for the whole street to hear. An eyesore is something that looks bad, and Linda thought Jake's fan was ruining her perfect neighborhood. She didn't even knock on his door to talk about it. Nope. She just wrote a nasty note, taped it to his front door, and walked away. The note said, "Remove this ugly fan by tomorrow or you'll get a fine." Linda Grayson, HOA president. Jake found the note when he got home. He read it, chuckled, and tossed it in the trash. He wasn't scared of Linda. To him, she was just a grumpy lady who needed to relax. But Linda wasn't done, not even close. She kept coming back, leaving more notes, each one meaner than the last. "This fan breaks Rule 47, one said. "You're ruining our neighborhood," said another. Jake didn't budge. The fan stayed right where it was, spinning away. What Linda didn't know was that Jake wasn't just some guy with a fan. Oh no, there was something way bigger going on, something that would make her jaw drop. Jake wasn't worried about her notes or her fines. He had a secret, a big one, and it was about to change everything in Oakwood Heights. But I'm not going to spill it just yet. Let's just say Jake was watching Linda a lot closer than she thought, and that fan, it wasn't as simple as it looked. See, Jake wasn't the kind of guy who got mad or yelled back. When Linda stomped by his house, glaring at the fan, he'd just wave and smile. That smile drove her nuts. She didn't understand why he wasn't scared of her like everyone else. The other neighbors would jump to fix whatever Linda complained about, but Jake, he acted like her rules didn't matter, and that made Linda even madder. She started to think Jake was trouble, someone who needed to be taught a lesson. She didn't know it, but she was the one about to learn something. Oakwood Heights wasn't as perfect as Linda wanted everyone to believe. Sure, the houses looked nice and the streets were clean, but there were little problems nobody talked about. Packages kept disappearing from porches. One day, Mrs. Thompson's new book was gone. Another day, Mr. Lee's headphones never showed up. People whispered about it, but nobody knew who was behind it. Linda didn't seem to care about the missing stuff. She was too busy writing fines for things like wrong-colored curtains or too many garden gnomes. But Jake noticed. He noticed a lot of things. Every evening, Jake would sit on his porch, sipping his lemonade, watching the neighborhood. He saw kids playing, dogs running, and Linda marching around with her clipboard. He also saw her stop at houses when she thought nobody was looking. She'd glance around, then scribble something down. Jake didn't say anything, but he was paying attention. That fan on his porch wasn't just keeping him cool. It was doing something else, something Linda would never guess. The neighbors didn't know much about Jake, but they were starting to talk. "He's nice but kinda weird," said Mrs. Jenkins, who lived next door. "Always in that garage with his gadgets." Mr. Rodriguez, who mowed lawns down the street, thought Jake was okay. "He doesn't bother anyone," he said, "but Linda, she told everyone Jake was a problem. He's breaking rules," she'd say at HOA meetings. "That fan has to go." Nobody argued with her, not out loud. They didn't want to be her next target. Still, Jake stayed calm. He didn't fight with Linda or rip down her notes. He just kept his fan spinning and went about his day. Sometimes he'd tinker in his garage late at night, the light glowing under the door. If you walked by, you might hear a soft hum or a click, like he was building something. Nobody asked what he was up to, and Jake didn't tell. He liked it that way, quiet, simple, and out of the spotlight. But the spotlight was coming, whether he wanted it or not. Linda was getting bolder. She started telling people Jake was trouble and not one of us. She'd stand on the sidewalk, pointing at his house, her voice loud and sharp. "We don't need people like him here," she said one day, loud enough for Jake to hear. He was on his porch, fixing a chair, and he just looked up and waved. That wave made Linda's face turn red. She wasn't used to people ignoring her. She was used to getting her way. What Linda didn't see was that Jake wasn't ignoring her, not really. He was watching, waiting, and planning. That fan on his porch, it wasn't just a fan. It had a little trick up its sleeve, something that would make Linda wish she'd left Jake alone. But we're not there yet. The story's just getting started, and trust me, it's going to get wild. Jake's secret was like a puzzle, and he was putting the pieces together one by one. Every time Linda left a note or yelled about his fan, she was giving him another clue. He didn't need to shout or make a scene. Jake was the kind of guy who worked in the shadows, figuring things out while everyone else was busy arguing. And Linda, she was walking right into his trap without even knowing it. Oakwood Heights was about to see something it hadn't seen before. Linda thought she was in charge, but Jake was about to show her and everyone else that things weren't what they seemed. That fan on his porch was just the beginning. Something big was brewing, something that would make the whole neighborhood stop and stare. And when it happened, Linda's clipboard wouldn't help her one bit. So what do you think so far? Can you picture Jake sitting there all calm and cool while Linda's losing her mind over a fan? Have you ever known someone like her, always trying to boss people around? Stick with me because this story's got a twist that'll make you smile. Jake's got a plan and it's going to be awesome. Okay, let's keep this story rolling. Things are about to get juicy in Oakwood Heights. Now picture this, Linda Grayson, the HOA Karen, is on the warpath, and Jake Carter, the new guy with the cool fan, is right in her sights. This part is all about the trouble starting to bubble up, trouble Linda doesn't even see coming. Ready? Here we go. It was a bright morning, the kind where the sun makes everything look happy. But Linda wasn't happy, not one bit. She stood on Jake's front lawn, her arms crossed, her face all scrunched up like she'd just smelled something bad. She pointed at the smart fan on his porch, the shiny, quiet one Jake loved so much. "That fan's a violation," she barked, her voice loud and sharp. She pulled out her phone and started snapping pictures, click, 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 like she was a detective collecting proof. "I'm reporting this to the board," she said, glaring at Jake. Jake was standing by his front door, leaning against the frame, super calm. He didn't look mad or scared. He just shrugged his shoulders and said, "It's a fan, Linda, chill out." His voice was easy, like he didn't have a worry in the world. But Linda, she didn't chill out, not even close. She smirked at him, her lips curling up in a mean little smile. "You'll see, newbie," she said, her words slow and smug. "I run this place." Then she turned around and stormed off, her flip-flops smacking the pavement with every step. Smack, 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 you could hear her coming from a mile away. Now Jake didn't say anything back. He didn't yell or chase after her. He just watched her go, his eyes following her down the street. He didn't need to argue. He had something up his sleeve, something big, but we'll get to that soon. For now, let's talk about Linda and why she thought she could boss everyone around. See, Linda wasn't quiet about anything. She loved being loud and in charge. The neighbors knew all about her. They'd whisper to each other when she wasn't around. "She fined Old Man Jenkins last week," one would say, "just because his roses were ugly." Old Man Jenkins had these bright red roses growing by his mailbox, and Linda said they didn't fit the neighborhood. So she made him pay money, a fine, for having flowers. Can you believe that? Another neighbor would nod and say, "Yeah," and she yelled at the Parker kids for riding their bikes too fast. The Parker kids were just having fun, zooming around, but Linda stood in the street, waving her clipboard, shouting until they rode away. Everyone in Oakwood Heights knew Linda was trouble. She'd show up at your house with that clipboard, her pen scratching away, writing down every little thing she didn't like. If your grass was too long, fine. If your trash can stayed out past pickup day, fine. If you hung a wreath on your door that was approved, you guessed it, fine. She'd hand you a piece of paper with a number on it, telling you how much you owed the HOA. And you had to pay, or she'd make your life even worse. The neighbors didn't like her, but they didn't know what to do. "What choice do we have?" Mrs. Jenkins would say, shaking her head. "She's the boss." Mr. Rodriguez, who mowed lawns, would shrug and mutter, "She's mean, but she's in charge." Everyone just put up with it. They'd grumble quietly, but nobody stood up to her. Linda thought she had all the power in the world. She walked around like a queen, telling people what to do, and they listened, or at least they pretended to. But Jake, he was different. He didn't jump when Linda barked. That morning, when she stood on his lawn yelling about the fan, he didn't even blink. "It's a fan, Linda. Chill out," he'd said, like it was no big deal. That made Linda mad, really mad. She wasn't used to people talking back, even if it was just a little shrug and a calm voice. She wanted Jake to be scared, to take the fan down right away. But he didn't. He just stood there, watching her flip-flops smack away. Linda's smirk stayed on her face as she walked off, but inside she was steaming. She didn't like Jake. He was new, he was quiet, and worst of all, he didn't follow her rules. To her, that fan wasn't just a fan, it was a big problem. It was like Jake was saying, "I don't care what you think." And Linda couldn't stand that. She was used to everyone bowing down to her, saying, "Yes, Linda," and "Sorry, Linda." But Jake, he wasn't playing her game. The neighbors saw it happen. Some peeked out their windows, curtains twitching. "She's at it again," Mrs. Thompson whispered to her cat. "Poor Jake." Others shook their heads but didn't say much. They'd seen Linda pick fights before, and it never ended well for the other person. "He'll learn," Mr. Lee said, watering his plants. "She always wins." That's what they thought anyway. Linda had been running Oakwood Heights like her own little kingdom for years. Nobody ever stopped her. But here's the thing, Linda didn't know everything. She thought she had all the power, but Jake, he was hiding something that flipped her little kingdom upside down. He didn't argue with her that morning, didn't raise his voice or stomp his feet. He just watched her go, his hands in his pockets, a tiny smile tugging at his lips. That smile wasn't loud or big, but it was there, and it meant something. Linda didn't see the smile. She was too busy planning her next move. She'd report Jake to the HOA board, she decided. She'd write a big letter full of fancy words saying how his fan was breaking all the rules. She'd make sure everyone knew Jake was a troublemaker. "He'll wish he never moved here," she muttered to herself, her flip-flops still smacking as she marched home. She thought she was winning. She thought she had Jake right where she wanted him. But Jake wasn't worried, not one bit. He leaned against his doorframe a little longer, the fan spinning quietly behind him. The breeze felt nice and the sun was warm. He didn't look like a guy who was scared of a fine or a mean lady with a clipboard. He looked like a guy who knew something Linda didn't, and that's because he did. The tension was building in Oakwood Heights, even if nobody knew it yet. Linda thought she was the big boss, the one calling all the shots. But Jake, he was calm and quiet for a reason. He wasn't just some new guy with a fan. He had a secret, a really good one, and it was going to change everything. Linda's kingdom wasn't as strong as she thought, and Jake was about to show her why. So what do you think? Can you feel the trouble brewing? Linda's all puffed up, thinking she's in charge, but Jake's got something cooking. Stick around, this story's just heating up. Alright, let's keep this story moving. Things are starting to heat up in Oakwood Heights. Linda's getting madder, Jake's staying cool, and some sneaky secrets are peeking out. Imagine you're sitting on your porch with a popsicle watching this all unfold. It's getting good, let's jump in. Days went by after Linda's big scene on Jake's lawn. The sun kept shining, the birds kept chirping, but Linda, she got louder every day. She'd march past Jake's house on Maple Street, her flip-flops smacking the sidewalk, her eyes locked on that smart fan. She'd stop and glare at it like it was some kind of criminal hiding on his porch. That fan just spun quietly, doing its job, but to Linda, it was the worst thing ever. She'd mutter to herself, "That fan, gotta go," and scribble something on her clipboard. Every time she walked by, she made sure Jake knew she wasn't giving up. One evening, things got even wilder. The sky was turning orange and pink, and most people were inside eating dinner, but not Linda. She stomped right up to Jake's house, her face all red and grumpy. She banged on his door, bam, 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 like she was trying to wake up the whole neighborhood. Jake opened it slow, peeking out with that calm look he always had. Linda didn't wait for him to say hi. "Take it down," she yelled, pointing at the fan. "Take it down right now or I'm calling the cops." Her voice was so loud, a dog down the street started barking. Jake didn't flinch. He leaned against the door, his hands in his pockets, and looked at her. "Go ahead," he said, super easy, like he was talking about the weather. Then get this, he gave her a tiny grin, just a little one, barely there, but it was enough. That grin, it bugged Linda big time. Her eyes got all squinty and her mouth opened like she wanted to yell more, but she didn't know what to say. Why wasn't Jake scared? Why wasn't he mad? That grin made her brain twist in knots. She didn't get it, and she hated not getting it. Linda huffed, turned around, and marched off, her flip-flops smacking louder than ever. She was steaming mad, but Jake, he just closed the door and went back inside, still grinning a little. He wasn't worried about her yelling or her threats. Nope. Jake had something going on, something Linda couldn't see yet, and that's where this story starts to get sneaky. Later that night, when the stars were out and the neighborhood was quiet, Jake was in his house doing something secret. He sat in his living room, the lights low, holding his phone. He wasn't playing games or texting a friend. He was talking to someone in a low voice, so quiet you'd have to lean close to hear. "Yeah, it's time," he said, his words slow and serious. "She's pushing too far." He nodded, like the person on the other end said something back, then hung up. Who was he talking to? It wasn't just a buddy catching up. Oh no, Jake was up to something way bigger. Here's the thing, Jake had been watching Linda a lot closer than she thought. Ever since he moved in, he'd noticed stuff about her. She wasn't just bossy, she was sneaky, too. He'd seen her walking around the neighborhood not just with her clipboard, but acting all shady. Sometimes she'd stop by a house when nobody was home. She'd look around like she was checking if anyone was watching, then scribble notes real fast. Other times, she'd linger by a porch, her eyes darting left and right. Jake didn't say anything about it, but he saw it all, and he was keeping track. Now let's talk about that fan. Linda thought it was just some dumb gadget, something ugly she could yell about. But she was wrong, super wrong. That fan wasn't just a fan. Tucked inside its shiny silver case was a tiny camera so small you never spot it unless you knew where to look. Jake had put it there on purpose. Every time that fan spun, it was recording. Yep, recording. It caught everything happening outside his house. Every step, every glare, every shady move Linda made when she thought no one was looking. Jake wasn't just sitting around, sipping lemonade and ignoring Linda's notes. He was collecting proof. Proof of what? Well, we're not spilling all the beans yet, but let's just say Linda wasn't as perfect as she wanted everyone to think. Jake had seen her sneaking around, and that fan was his secret helper. It was like his little spy, catching her every move on video. Linda had no clue. She'd march by, yelling about rules, while that fan quietly saved it all. The days kept passing, and Linda kept getting bolder. She'd stop neighbors on the street, pointing at Jake's house. "He's breaking the rules," she'd say, waving her clipboard like a flag. "That fan's a disgrace." Some neighbors nodded, too scared to argue. Others just shrugged and walked away. But Jake, he didn't care what she said. He'd sit on his porch watching her rant, that tiny grin popping up now and then. It drove Linda nuts. She'd stomp off, muttering about fines and cops, but nothing she did made Jake budge. What Linda didn't know was that Jake wasn't alone in this. That phone call, it meant he had a plan and someone helping him. He wasn't just a guy with a fan and a garage full of gadgets. He was smart, snaky, and ready for whatever Linda threw at him. Every time she banged on his door or glared at that fan, she was giving Jake more to work with. She thought she was winning, but she was really just digging herself into a big mess. The neighbors started noticing Jake's calm vibe. "He's not scared of her," Mrs. Jenkins said one day, watering her flowers. "That's weird." Mr. Rodriguez nodded. "Linda's losing it, but he's just chilling." They didn't know about the camera or the phone call, but they could tell something was up. Jake wasn't like the others. He didn't bow down to Linda, and that made her madder every day. Linda kept pushing. She'd walk by Jake's house 2, 3, sometimes 4 times a day, staring at that fan like it was her enemy. She'd scribble notes, take pictures, and mutter to herself. One time she even yelled across the street, "You'll regret this, newbie." Jake just waved, nice and slow, like he was saying hi to a friend. That wave, it sent Linda over the edge. She didn't know what to do with a guy who wouldn't fight back. But Jake wasn't just sitting there. Every night he'd check his phone, looking at what the fan recorded. He'd smile a little, nod to himself, and keep planning. Linda thought she was the boss, the queen of Oakwood Heights, but Jake was watching her crown start to slip. She was loud, she was mean, and she was sneaky, but she wasn't as smart as she thought. And that fan, it was about to show everyone the truth. So what's cooking here? Can you feel it getting exciting? Linda's all worked up, but Jake's got a secret weapon. That tiny camera's catching everything, and he's ready to use it. What do you think he's waiting for? Stick with me, this story about to get even better. Alright friends, buckle up. This is the part where everything goes wild in Oakwood Heights. Linda's about to get the shock of her life, and Jake's little secret is finally coming out. And picture this like the best part of a movie. Popcorn ready, eyes wide, here we go. It was Friday, and the week had been crazy with Linda yelling about Jake's fan. The sun was shining, kids were playing, and everything seemed normal until Linda lost it. She had enough of that shiny smart fan spinning on Jake's porch. She marched up to his house, her flip-flops smacking so loud you could hear them from 3 houses away. She stood right on Jake's porch, her face red as a tomato, and pulled out her phone. She dialed 911, yep, the real police, and started screeching into it like a wild bird. "There's a disturbance," she yelled, her voice so high it hurt your ears. "This guy's fan is harassing me, do something." She waved her arm at the fan, pointing like it was some big bad monster. The fan just kept spinning, quiet and cool, not bothering anyone. Linda thought she'd won. She thought the cops would come and take Jake away and she'd be the big winner. She stood there, chest puffed out, waiting for her victory. Jake heard all the noise and stepped outside. He didn't run or yell. He just walked out, arms crossed over his chest, looking chill as ever. He stood on his porch, watching Linda scream into her phone. He didn't say a word, just waited. Then, right on cue, a police car rolled up the street. Its lights weren't flashing, but you could tell it was serious. The tires crunched on the road as it stopped in front of Jake's house. Linda's eyes lit up like she'd just won a prize. "See," she said, smirking at Jake. "You're in trouble now, newbie." But then, oh, this is the best part. The 2 officers stepped out of the car. They were tall, with shiny badges and serious faces. Linda grinned, thinking they were there for Jake. She pointed at him, ready to say, "Arrest him." But the cops didn't even look at Jake. Nope. They walked right past her, their boots thumping on the ground, and headed straight across the street to Linda's house. Her smirk froze. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. She just stood there, blinking fast, like her brain couldn't catch up. One of the cops turned around and looked at her. "Linda Grayson," he said, his voice strong and firm, "we need to talk." Linda's jaw dropped so low it almost hit the porch. What?" she stammered, her voice all shaky now. No, 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 it's him." She spun around and pointed at Jake, her finger wobbling. "Arrest him, he's the problem, his fan's breaking all the rules." She sounded desperate, like a kid caught with cookie crumbs all over her face. But Jake, he didn't budge. He uncrossed his arms and pulled his phone out of his pocket. He held it up, calm as a cucumber, and said, "Check this out, officers." The cops turned to him, curious. Linda's eyes got big. She didn't know what was coming. Jake tapped his phone and a video started playing. The screen lit up and there it was, clear as day, like a movie starring Linda herself. The video came from that smart fan on his porch, the one with the tiny camera inside. And what it showed. Oh, it was gold. The video showed Linda sneaking around the neighborhood, not just walking with her clipboard, but creeping into yards when nobody was home. She'd look left, look right, then grab packages right off people's porches. One clip showed her snatching a little brown box from Mrs. Thompson's steps. Another showed her taking a big envelope from Mr. Lee's door. She'd stuff them under her arm and hurry off, acting like nothing happened. The whole neighborhood had been losing stuff for weeks, books, toys, even headphones, and there was Linda, caught red-handed on Jake's fan camera. The cops watched the video, their faces getting more serious every second. Linda's mouth flapped open and shut like a fish out of water. "That's not me," she squeaked, but it was no use. Everyone could see it was her, same flip-flops, same clipboard, same sneaky walk. The neighbors started peeking out their windows, wondering what was going on. Mrs. Jenkins poked her head out, her eyes wide. Mr. Rodriguez stepped onto his lawn, watching with his hose dripping water. Jake turned off the video and looked at the cops. She's been doing this for a while, he said, his voice steady. I've got more if you need it. The officers nodded, then turned back to Linda. Ma'am, you need to come with us, one said, pulling out a pair of shiny handcuffs. Linda freaked out. No, this is a mistake, she yelled, backing up. He's lying. That fan's the problem, not me. But the cops weren't buying it. They stepped closer, and Linda's big victory turned into a big mess. See, Jake wasn't just some guy with a fan. He was a private investigator, a real-life detective. Someone in the neighborhood had hired him to figure out who was stealing all the packages. That's why he moved in, why he set up the fan, why he stayed so calm. He'd been watching Linda from day one, letting her yell and fuss, all while his fan recorded every sneaky step she took. Linda thought she was the queen of Oakwood Heights, but Jake had the proof to knock her crown right off. The cops grabbed Linda's arms, gentle but firm, and clicked the handcuffs on her wrists. You're under arrest for theft, one said. Linda's face went from red to white. Theft, she shrieked. I'm the HOA president, I don't steal. But the video didn't lie, and neither did Jake. He stood there, arms crossed again, watching as the cops walked her to the car. Linda kept yelling, this isn't fair, he's the bad guy. But nobody listened. The truth was out, and it was loud. Neighbors started coming outside now, gathering on their lawns. She's been taking our stuff, Mrs. Thompson said, holding her cat. I knew it, Mr. Lee nodded, crossing his arms. My headphones gone because of her. The whole street buzzed with chatter. Linda's big moment, calling the cops on Jake, had flipped upside down. She wasn't the winner. She was the one in trouble, and Jake was the hero nobody saw coming. The fan kept spinning on Jake's porch, quiet and cool, like it was proud of itself. Linda thought it was just an eyesore, but it was the key to catching her. She dialed 911 to get Jake, but the cops were already there for her. How's that for a twist? Jake didn't gloat or cheer. He just watched, letting the truth do all the talking. So what do you think? Linda's big plan blew up in her face, and Jake's secret came out like a fireworks show. Can you believe that fan was a spy? Stick around, the story not over yet. Okay friends, we're at the part where everything settles down in Oakwood Heights, but not before some big stuff happens. Linda's in hot water, Jake's the hero, and the neighborhood about to feel a whole lot better. Imagine you're watching this like the end of a fun show. Everything's wrapping up and it feels so good. Let's dive in. Linda's face turned as red as a big ripe tomato when the cops snapped those shiny handcuffs on her wrists. She didn't go quietly. Oh no, this is a mistake, she yelled, her voice loud and squeaky, bouncing off the houses. You've got the wrong person. She twisted and turned, trying to wiggle free, but the cops held on tight. Nobody believed her, though. Not after that video from Jake's fan showed her sneaking around, stealing packages like a sneaky fox. The proof was right there, and Linda couldn't talk her way out of it. The neighbors couldn't help themselves. They had to see what was going on. Curtains twitched and heads poked